All right, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to use your modeling tool and your pin tool successfully on the pottery wheel. So I'm going to work a little bit backwards. I just took my pot off the wheel, and what I'm going to do is I'm using my modeling tool to scrape off the excess clay on the wheel. So by holding this with all my might, I'm going to hold it at about 4 o'clock, dragging this angle against my bat. I'm going to let it do all the work for me, and I'm going to catch the piece of clay that comes off. Now my wheel is pretty much ready for that new ball of clay. So that's one way to use your modeling tool. I'm going to make sure my clay is nice and round before I start wheel throwing, pounding it out with my palms. Once it's nice and rounded, I'm going to slap it in the center, and then I'll show you guys how to use your pin tool or your needle tool and your modeling tool on the edges of your clay and on the rim with the needle tool. All right, so I'm going to quickly get this on here to show you how these tools work. Make sure it's nice and stuck first. I'm going to center. To make anything on the wheel, you have to make sure you're centering. So I'm going to make a very tall vase so that you guys can see how I'm going to trim my rim, how I'll trim the edges off the clay with my modeling tool. Whenever I make something taller on the wheel, I'm going to center a little bit higher. Now that I'm centered, I'm going to open up the clay. So if you start pulling up the clay, it seems like it's going off centered. Let me do a nice big pull, and I'll show you how to trim your rim when it goes off centered. That's a really good way to bring your piece back on center too, is when you trim and compress your rim. All right, so see my rim is getting a little wonky. So to use my pin tool, I'm going to hold it with my right hand, if you're a righty, and at about 3 o'clock is where I'm going to stab the side of the clay. We never want to go downward on the clay because that's not going to trim it correctly. So I'm going to make sure I meet the inside of my clay wall with my finger on the other side. So it's going to look like this. I'm holding it nice and tight. My arm is resting on my leg. My feet are flat on the floor. At about between 3 and 4 o'clock, I'm going to stab inside the clay wall. Take your time, guys, because if you go up too quickly, it's not going to do a full rotation for you to meet your finger on the other side. So I did my full rotation. I met my finger about 1/4 of an inch down. And then once you're done doing that trim, you can see my rim is a little bit uneven still. There's like a couple little crumbs on here. I'm going to compress my rim. So to compress, I put my wheel back on. I'm going to cradle my rim with my left hand with my pointer finger and my thumb. I'm going to take my pointer finger from my right hand, letting the clay just coast between my fingers. I'm going to just like kind of karate chop down with my pointer finger and let it smooth itself out. And then I slowly let go. So just by doing that, it helped to recenter my piece, I feel like. I'm going to do another pull along the bottom, letting the clay do full rotations between my fingers. Then I'll shape it to make some kind of pot, and then show you how to use my modeling tool again on the outside to trim before I wire cut the piece off. So I'm going to give the pot a nice like little belly. I'm going to bring it in, bring it out, make a nice like little pottery vase. Now to get this area trimmed down here, I would like to follow the edge of the clay. I'm going to slow my speed down a little bit because you can see my clay is getting a little wonky. I'm going to use this angle of my modeling tool at about between 3 and 4 o'clock. I'm going to drive the point into the edge of the clay, meeting my bat. Once I make my mark, I'm going to hold my modeling tool again with this part against the bat and drag the clay away. Hold it nice and tight, because if you don't, it's going to want to pull your hand around. So I'm holding it tight, having my arm resting against my leg. See, I just made like a little divot in the side wall. That's okay, I can fix it. And I'm going to use my sponge now too along the outside edge to get rid of any of these crumbs and to fix this. You can see now I'm losing my pot. I'm compressing my clay floor. I'm going to collar my clay now too to fix it. It's going off center a tad bit. once I'm done collaring it, to bring it back to center. If I need to trim the rim again, I will do that. I'm going to do a nice little pool because it feels like the clay is thicker at the bottom versus the top. Slowly working my way up. All right, I'm going to trim my rim again. You can see my rim's a little wonky. I'm going to go down about 1/4 of an inch, meet my finger inside the pot like that, holding my hands nice and steady. You always want to make sure your hands are touching too. I never want to see people going like this to meet their fingers because there's no stability here. I always have my hands working together as a team, meeting my finger on the other side, pull up, and now we have to follow with a compression. So I'm compressing, and I slowly let go. I'm going to take the water out of the inside of my pot too. I'm using my sponge. I'm going to clean the outside edge again. I don't like this little lip down here. I'm going to use my modeling tool again to follow the curvature of my pot, letting this go against the curve of the pot, meeting it to my bat, and then I'm going to drag the clay away. Actually, it started to drag it away before I even turned my modeling tool over. Use my sponge to smooth it. And then once I go to trim my clay, I have a little less trimming I need to do because now I just use my modeling tool to clean it up. All right, so now I'm gonna say I'm done before I lose my pot. Feels like my top is centered, but my belly is getting off centered. The clay is saying, I want it to be done or you're gonna lose it. So once you're all done wheel throwing your piece, don't forget to wire cut it to release it from the bat. If you don't do this part, it's going to be tougher for you guys to get it off the wheel head or off the bat when it starts to dry. So this is an easy way for it to start being released. So what I do is I wrap my wire cutter around my pointer fingers. I'm going to take my thumbs, press them against the bat, and pull the wire toward me. And then I can take my bat off the pottery wheel and let the clay start to dry a little bit before I pop it off the bat. Very carefully, because if I let this, if I put this down too hard, it will make your pot just flop off or flop inward. All right, so there's my successful pot.